Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into a seriously fascinating piece of spiritual literature. We're going to explore an explainer covering an interview with none other than Ra-Mu, the legendary ruler of the lost continent of Mu. Now, normally, when you think of ancient divine kings, you probably imagine a booming voice from the heavens, right? Handing down ancient wisdom with absolute clarity. But the personality that actually emerges from this source material, it's highly unexpected. He's remarkably cynical and at first completely reluctant to open up or reveal his true feelings. We're going to break down his exact words, his absolutely astonishing claims, and the highly advanced civilization he says he ruled. It's a really deep dive into an entity who plays his cards incredibly close to the chest, before finally revealing the staggering scope of his past. Just to immediately give you a sense of this guy's unique vibe, check out this quote. So the interviewer tries to butter him up, right? Mentioning his immense popularity and the grand legacy attached to his name. And Ramu just flat out rejects the compliment. He literally compares himself to an unsold DVD or a CD just sitting in an antique shop. And he jokes, pretty cynically, that the garbage truck is going to come for him soon. It's such a bizarrely self-deprecating complaint to hear from an ancient god king. It completely shatters that majestic image we usually expect. But this isn't just him making a weird pop culture reference. It reveals a really defensive posture. By using these modern, self-deprecating consumer metaphors, he's actively dodging the massive expectations being placed on him. It totally sets the tone for the interview. Getting to the truth here is definitely going to require some serious persistence. Section 1. The unexpected persona. The depth of this reluctance gets even more obvious when the topic turns to modern media. The interviewer brings up the animated movie The Laws of the Sun, which actually features these grand cinematic depictions of the Mu civilization and Ra-Mu himself. Now, you'd think a forgotten historical figure would be thrilled by a big-budget movie resurrecting his legacy, right? Instead, he remarkably and bluntly dismisses it. His exact word in Japanese is chachi, which translates to cheap or shabby. This is a super crucial moment in the text. He's not easily impressed, and he completely refuses to validate modern interpretations of his life. This blunt rejection isn't just him being difficult, though. It's a calculated reluctance. He doesn't easily reveal his true intentions, kind of masking his deeper spiritual identity behind this wall of unimpressed criticism. But despite all this evasiveness, the text actually shows this really fascinating cat-and-mouse dynamic. Ramu insists, "It's not that I'm in a bad mood," even though his answers remain incredibly short, guarded, and honestly pretty uncooperative throughout the beginning of the chapter. But the interrogator? They absolutely refuse to back down. They keep pressing with pointed questions. The interviewer is clearly aware that this grumpy, reluctant facade is deliberately hiding immense secrets. And the tension in the text really builds, because you know that if this shell can just be cracked, a monumental truth about his identity and the ancient history of the world is waiting right there to be uncovered. Section 2. The Divine Connection. Okay, so to really understand the monumental stakes of what the interviewer is trying to uncover, we have to define a core concept first. In the context of this specific spiritual literature, El Cantare is defined as the supreme being. We're talking the overarching creator god of the earth and the ultimate source of spiritual light. So this isn't just some minor deity or a local nature spirit. This entity represents literally the highest possible echelon of the spiritual hierarchy. Understanding El Cantare is absolutely essential to grasping the sheer gravity of the framework we're examining today, because the conversation is about to shift from mundane complaints about DVDs to the literal architecture of creation. And here's the payoff. When he's finally pressed beyond his evasive defenses, Ramu drops an absolute bombshell that completely recontextualizes everything. He states, "I am close to the main body of El Cantare. We are the same person." Wow. The text is asserting that Ramu isn't merely a former mortal king who ruled a long time ago. He's being presented as a direct extension, a core part of the soul of the supreme creator god himself. The contrast here is just absolutely fascinating. Think about it. Just moments ago, we were listening to an entity comparing himself to garbage left in an antique shop, totally dismissing his own legacy. And now he casually claims to be a localized manifestation of God on Earth. It perfectly highlights exactly why he was so reluctant to open up initially. The truth of his identity is just almost too massive to easily articulate. Section 3. Mapping the Lost Worlds. So, from his divine identity in the spiritual realm, the text then takes a step down to physical geography. The source material actually plots out the purported location of the Mu continent. And I mean, the sheer scale of it is breathtaking. Notice the vast dotted borders situated right squarely in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This isn't just a small island, it's a massive landmass bridging the incredibly vast space between modern-day Japan, the Americas, and Australia. The text is describing an empire of unprecedented size, dominating the world's largest ocean tens of thousands of years ago. It completely rewrites the standard geographical history of the planet. Furthermore, the source explicitly clears up a really common geographical and historical confusion. While Mu dominated the vast expanse of the Pacific, the text sharply differentiates it from another legendary lost land, Lemuria. As detailed in the geographic layout provided, Lemuria is placed much further south, spanning the Indian Ocean between the eastern coast of Africa and the Indian subcontinent. During the interview, Ramu makes it very clear that these were completely distinct places, with distinct cultures and timelines, and he insists that modern esoteric traditions often incorrectly mix them up. Section 4. Debunking the primitive myth. Now, this massive geographic footprint leads us straight into a major point of contention regarding human history. When the interviewer tries to trace the lineage of the Mu civilization to the ancient Japanese Jomon and Yayoi periods, Ramu becomes incredibly dismissive. Just to give some context for those who might be unfamiliar with Japanese archaeology, the Jomon period dates back to around 14,000 BCE, and it's characterized by early hunter-gatherer lifestyles and distinct cord-marked clay pottery. The subsequent Yayoi period brought the beginnings of wet rice farming and simple metallurgy. Modern history views these as the foundational, albeit primitive, roots of civilization in the region. But Ramu? He vehemently rejects this association. He insists that his era, despite supposedly existing far earlier than the Jomon period, was a highly advanced, vastly superior civilization. To him, comparing his empire to early humans making clay pots is a profound misunderstanding of history. His exact quote on the matter is incredibly striking, and it really brings back that cynical, exasperated personality we saw at the beginning. He says, "It's embarrassing to say civilization dawned with just hardening and baking clay. Give me a break." You can really hear how deeply offended he is by modern humanity's underestimation of his era. And this connects perfectly back to him calling his movie depiction cheap. He feels fundamentally insulted by the assumption that the further back in time you go, the more primitive humanity must have been. He flat out refuses to accept that his people were simple primitives playing with mud, asserting instead that humanity has forgotten a towering pinnacle of technological achievement. So if they weren't baking clay and hunting with stone tools, what exactly were they doing? Well, the text describes a breathtaking alternative, an empire powered entirely by advanced technology. Specifically, their use of pyramid power. The Mu civilization purportedly utilized a massive central pyramid that acted as a colossal generator to absorb and amplify solar energy. And get this, that energy was then wirelessly transmitted and distributed to smaller pyramids situated on top of individual homes all across the continent. It is this incredible vision of a highly advanced, harmonious, and entirely clean energy society that existed long before recorded history, operating on principles of physics and spiritual energy that modern science has yet to even comprehend. Section 5. The Fading Memory of a God. But here is the catch. Despite claiming an identity intimately linked to the supreme creator of the Earth, and despite describing an incredibly advanced, continent-spanning, solar-powered empire, Ramu makes a truly shocking admission near the end of the text. He states, "My memory is fading. It's like I have Alzheimer's. Soon I will have no memory at all." This is an incredibly stark contrast to his grand past and his divine status. It introduces this profound existential dread to the narrative. It's almost like a cosmic Alzheimer's. He notes that as deep time stretches on, even the spiritual records and memories of the physical world dissolve into the ether. The entity that supposedly built the greatest civilization on Earth is slowly, inevitably, forgetting it ever even happened. And that leaves us with a deeply provocative thought. If a channel's entity, one described as a creator god who ruled a continent-spanning high-tech empire, claims that his own memories are slipping away into the void, how do we ever truly reconstruct the history of these lost civilizations? If the spiritual archives themselves are subject to decay, the past might be far more fragile than we ever imagined. It is a fascinating intersection of myth, spiritual channeling, and the ultimate fragility of history itself. Definitely something to think about. Until next time.